Hello there, welcome back to the Ogre, the old Git Reacts, Reviews and Off Times Reminiscences. Today we're doing something I didn't actually come across. Most of the stuff I listen to I find myself, but this was a recommendation from somebody off of was it Blue Sky? I think it was Blue Sky. And I thought I'd have a quick listen. You never know. And after, to be fair, I'm still waiting for this album in its entirety to sink in. It's getting me there. I'm sort of being swayed, but there's one or two tracks on here which have already grabbed me. The main one being Basalt on here, and the thing that drew me in for different reasons was I think I've discovered the ghost of Neil Peart's 70s moustache, because one of the members of this combo has found it in a cemetery somewhere and is now sporting it. I do hope they're the drummer, because that would be very fitting. Anyway, let's listen to the track that, as I say, has grabbed me the most so far. I cannot escape noticing, looking at the Bandcamp pages, is that they describe themselves as emotional black metal, and that'll do for me. But there's far more than that going on this album and on this track as well. The beginning just took me back to when I was a toddler, really. That sort of progressive end of the 60s, really, the 70s, where that sort of singing was quite prevalent. In some ways, I'm not keen on clean singing, but there are exceptions, and that's one of them. It just, as I say, takes me back to particularly American, particularly I think really transatlantic groups were singing like that at the time. That is evocative for me, but of course it's the black metal that counts predominantly for me, and when it did switch, very effective, and again, when you have a dichotomy between harsh vocals and clean vocals, the contrast does count, and sometimes, depending on the style, it switches me off, particularly when you have sort of more operatic or classical singing to counteract the beastie vocals. Not here. As I say, the contrast and styles used here, spot on for me. Anyway, let's see where we're going now, shall we? never ever, very rarely, it's probably a better way of putting it, very rarely look into bands to see who they are, where they're from, whatever, unless it's staring out at me from the Bandcamp page when I'm doing this sort of thing. But as I say, this was a recommendation, so there was a bit of blurb around it when I first saw the recommendation, and the term post-rock came up. Now, I have a problem, and it is my problem, because it's not even a problem, but a wry grin, maybe a wry smile begets my face when I hear post anything, because a lot of what I mean, like, I am an very aging punk rocker, not punk rocker now, any description I suppose, but punk rock was my first musical love, as I've said before on here. But the bands that came thereafter are now labelled post-punk. Well, they weren't called that for many a year. And it's probably, I don't know how long it took for that term to be used to describe those bands that either were still punky but have moved on, or weren't punky at all as post-punk. I see the same with post-metal and post-rock, and to me the post-rock elements here sound to me like rock, as I remember it from my youth. So I mean, does it matter? Of course not. It's the music that counts, but it always does raise a bit of a smile with me when I see the post stuck before something. I mean, some of the post-black metal bands I listen to, I'm going to thinking to myself, the black metal, and then I do, you know, I suppose I could look up what they mean by post this or that, but I can't be asked, to be honest. The music is what counts. So I hear you ask, why don't you shut up and listen to some more? I will do that. One of my big bugbears is breakdowns in music, particularly, well, of course, heavy music is where breakdowns predominantly dwell. But so I do appreciate when a band doesn't rely on tired old breakdowns in their interludes, if you want to call them that. I'm not a big fan of jingle jangle either, to be honest, but the brittleness of the little quieter interlude there was perfectly in keeping with the general feel of this song and the music that I found elsewhere on the album. And even when it gets chunky again, it hasn't got that awful sort of typical breakdown tone to it, or tempo, or whatever makes a breakdown I just know I don't like them when I hear them by and large, but not here. It's not lazy. Like a lot of breakdowns seem to be to these ears anyway. And the other thing is, bear with me because the thought just flew in, flew out. When you call yourself emotional black metal, I suppose the listener needs to be convinced of that. And I think these are convincing in using that one, because I mean emotion. When you say emotional, what do you mean? Do you mean sad, happy, or whatever? I'm being a bit trite here with it, but you do get the sense of whatever emotions are being conveyed here. Again, I don't read lyrics, so I wouldn't know, but you do get the sense of them being heartfelt and genuine, whatever it is that's being conveyed here. So again, I'm being convinced without much effort here, without knowing anything at all about the subject matter. But hey ho, good strong name Basalt, isn't it? It's the most solid of rocks, isn't it? So I like to think myself as being a bit basaltic. I do find I am a supportive person, so if I can be someone's rock, so be it. So there you go, not your typical black metal, and thank fuck for that. Nice to end on that again, retro sound, almost as if you've had a falling out and then made up again, I suppose. And there were one or two little flourishes in there, little embellishments that again added to the enjoyment of that particular track. The album as a whole I need to listen to two more times, but I think it won't take long before it robs me of a few dollars. So yeah, there you go. Anyway, clicky bollocks, catch you all next time. Cheerio.